Often after a death, we want to leave the clothes in the closet and the room exactly the way it always was and leave everything the way it used to be. There's a reason for that, as indeed there's a reason for every reaction. Often in the early days, we haven't quite convinced ourselves that they've really gone, and we, in our own minds, think that if we leave the clothes in the closet, maybe they'll be back and maybe they'll be able to use them again. I think we need to leave things just as they are until we are ready to make the decisions. Sometimes people rush us into things like, oh, you got to sell the house, you got to move away, you got to get rid of the clothes and the pictures. And I don't think we got to do anything. I think we need to take our time. Sometimes people say, oh, the clothes in the closet are just upsetting you. But guess what? You're upset whether the clothes are in the closet or whether they're distributed among the family or at the Salvation Army or wherever. That's not the issue. The time will come when you'll realize that, yes, now I can deal with this. The principle is that in major decisions, not to make these decisions for at least a year. And in some situations, of course, people have to make decisions and move and so on. But if you can possibly delay until you are ready some of the decisions about these things, I think you'll find that when it does come time to deal with it, that you'll do so with a peace of mind and a peace of heart that will be very satisfying. I'm convinced that grieving people need three things. The first thing may surprise you, because I think the first and foremost thing that a grieving person needs is education. I mean, maybe you would have thought I'd say empathy or love or understanding. But you see, we live in a death-denying culture. We live in a culture where people don't know what to expect. We live in a culture where people sometimes say, it's been 3 months, you ought to be over it by now. I think first and foremost, grieving people need to understand what grief is, what they can expect, because often it catches them by surprise. The emotions, the time frames, and all of these things. So grieving people need education, but then they also need empathy. And empathy is more than sympathy. Sympathy is when I say, I understand, and that's a one-way communication. You can decide whether I understand or whether I don't. Empathy is when I say I understand and you are able to respond, yes, I know you understand. So we need to find people who can understand something of what we're going through and feel that there are people who can understand, because that leads to the third thing, and it's support. Grieving people need to feel support. We need to feel that there are others around us who can at least begin to understand what we're going through and offer specific ways of help and support and encouragement throughout the grief process.